If you are going to leave the area, please leave now. You may not be able to leave shortly. If you do not leave and you are stranded, you risk not only your own life, but those who are sent to rescue you.
As Nightline goes to air tonight, Hurricane Hugo is battering the east coast of the United States. Thousands have fled to higher ground as winds are mixing with high tides to produce a potentially deadly combination. Tonight, we'll give the latest on Hurricane Hugo as we go live to the scene of the storm's devastation.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Let me point out at the outset that we are not sure what we will be able to bring you tonight because we'll be going to some of our correspondents and to people who are quite literally about to be in the eye of the hurricane. And in many instances, the television signals that we had 5 minutes ago, we may not have 2 minutes from now. The winds are terrifying. At 75 miles an hour, a tropical storm becomes a hurricane. Hugo's winds are swirling at almost twice that speed, 135 miles an hour. A little later in this broadcast, we'll show you live under the controlled conditions of a wind tunnel out in Pasadena just what force such winds can generate. But it is not the wind that causes the greatest destruction. What is facing the low-lying coastal regions of South Carolina at this hour, what is likely to cause the greatest damage there and further up the coast, is a phenomenon known as the storm surge. That part of the ocean that is pushed sometimes as much as 50 miles ahead of a hurricane's eye until it reaches heights of 10, 12, 15 feet or more. Joining us now from the National Hurricane Center in Coral Gables, Florida, the director of the center, Dr. Robert Sheets. Bring us up to date a little bit, not only on the storm, but on some of those storm surges that I was talking about there a moment ago, Bob, would you?
Well, Ted, indeed, the storm surge with this big hurricane is probably 15 to 20 feet. We'll go out after the fact and measure what it really was. But the eye wall is now on the coast up there near Charleston, South Carolina.
And what does that mean when you say the eye wall? The eye, first of all, is how large?
The eye, in this case, has been very large. It's been about 30 miles across right now. Earlier it was about 50 miles across. The eye wall is where those peak winds are. And so in other words, right now, the Charleston area is experiencing the full force of that hurricane.
And they were, only a few short minutes ago, 135 miles an hour. What are they now?
Well, that's our best estimate at the present time. The aircraft is flying just along the coast there. They don't fly over land, so we're not able to measure those over land.
The whole body of the storm is moving, Bob, what, still at about 17 miles an hour? So theoretically, it should take the eye a couple of hours to pass over any point of land. Is that correct?
That's right. From the leading edge to the trailing edge of that, it's moving about 22 now, so a little bit over an hour for the eye to pass over. And, of course, one warning is that people shouldn't get out in that. Even your news people shouldn't be out in the middle of that eye.
All right. We are, even as you and I are talking, going to have some late video from Charleston, South Carolina, which is where the eye of the storm is right now. I don't think that the video itself requires any kind of commentary, but it would be helpful, Bob, if you could be talking a little bit about the storm surge and what that does when it comes up on a low-lying coastal area.
Well, the storm surge is not the big tidal wave that so many people depict it as. It's a dome of water that rises gradually, started this morning, for instance, up in the Charleston area, and then as the hurricane approached, the center got near the coast, it was rising very rapidly, or should have been rising very rapidly, specifically there on the right side, over around the Isle of Palms, Fort Moultrie in that area, and reached its peak sometime probably within the last hour or during the next hour at probably 15 to 20 feet.
I know you're quite familiar with those coastal areas, so in terms of the altitude of particularly some of those barrier islands, a 15-foot storm surge, a 20-foot storm surge, the kind of thing you're talking about, would completely inundate it, wouldn't it?
That's right, because it's not only the dome of water we talked about getting up there 15 to 20 feet high, but on top of that, you got the 5 to 10 foot waves. And where those waves break, they basically erode all of the sand dunes and any houses that are built on those sand dunes.
All right, one more thing, and then I want to go to one of our correspondents who's standing by in Savannah right now, and that is the question of the high tide. You told us last night that high tide in that South Carolina region, I believe you said, was about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning.
That's right, and so we're coming in right at high tide, which is not very good for those areas.
Which adds how many feet to the storm surge?
In that area, it adds another 2 to 3 feet, so above mean water. And so again, we're looking up there at maybe 17, as much as 20 feet of water.
All right, Bob, thank you very much indeed. I hope that we can come back to you at the end of the program for a late update. Always good to have you with us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Now, correspondent Mike Von Friend is standing by in Savannah, Georgia. Mike, judging from the way you look right now, it's relatively calm there. How far below the eye of the storm are you there in Savannah? Savannah is how far below Charleston?
I know if you drive, it's 105 miles, and I guess the fact that we're getting our television signal out is a good indication that it's not that bad. It appears that Savannah is going to be spared. I'd be interested, Ted, in knowing from Bob Sheets if the placement of the hurricane being north of here is why we're not getting a surge. The way it was explained to me a minute ago is that the counterclock movement of the hurricane, if it's north of Savannah, is in fact going to drive the surge out to sea and not inland. They're very hopeful here that that's the case and that we're not going to have a big surge that was expected.
Mike, as you know, Bob Sheets is a man who has to do about 93 interviews a day, and I rather suspect he's off doing one of the other ones right now, so he can't hear you at the moment, but I must confirm that I have also heard the same thing you did. Because of the counterclockwise motion, the power surge all seems to be in a northerly direction, and it sounds then as though Georgia has missed the worst of it.
Right, and they've evacuated so many thousands of people, both from Hilton Head and the other islands. They were fully expecting that when they'd be going to their homes tomorrow, there wouldn't be much left. It appears that if you're south of Charleston, that you're going to probably be just fine.
All right, so basically, just describe it for me quickly. The weather down there right now, the winds, the rain, how bad?
We had some much stronger gusts than right now, but it's really, I wouldn't say it's much worse than a very nasty thunderstorm, except we don't have any thunder right now. We have some wind, we have a lot of rain, it's a nasty night, but it's no hurricane here.
Mike Von Friend in Savannah, Georgia. Thank you very much. When we return, we'll talk with one of the only people who decided to stay behind on South Carolina's Hilton Head Island. And what does a hurricane force wind